Hello and welcome back to Crafted by Corie. If you're new, I'm Corie. Welcome to my channel. If you're returning, thank you as always for being here. You are the best. I have some brand new patriotic DIYs, so let's go ahead and get right on into the crafting.
DIY number one. Okay, this is the sign from Dollar Tree. It is just I want to say balsa wood, but that's not quite right. But it's a very light sign. It's got that star cut out. And this is the America stencil I created for the last video that I'd messed up on because it was a little too large for the project, but we are going to use it today. So I'm going to hook up my Cricut Joy because I do have a second stencil that I want to create. So to do that, I went into Canva. If you're not familiar with Canva, it is free software. I love it. Some of the fonts are an upgrade. I don't think I used an upgraded font here, but it is I think it's iMore script, as you can see. I've got it highlighted there towards the bottom. But I had typed out the beautiful and done it in this script, and then I'm going to download it. That's that little icon top right corner with the arrow. And to download this, I want to select it as an SVG file. So that is what I selected here. I'm going to do transparent background, and then I'm going to click on download. And it's going to let me share it to somebody, or I can save it to my drive, which is what I did. And once I had that saved, I went into Cricut and I pulled up my canvas. I opted out of the free trial, but you can certainly try that if you want to. I'm going to click that green plus sign at the bottom, and I said replace because I wanted to clear the canvas. I'm going to start a new project here, and I'm going to select from my photo library. I had clicked on the upload down at the bottom. Hopefully you saw that. But I went and found my file that I had saved. I am going to name it here, which is required. You can see that it has that transparent background. That's what all those little gray squares are. It's just showing that it has nothing behind it. And now it has dropped it onto my canvas so I can work with it. Isn't that fun and exciting? It's the little things in life that make me happy. So this is ready for me to size and get to where I want it. Now, I'm also going to drop in a shape on this because Cricut is really good about maximizing your vinyl space. So it's going to try to put the cutouts, it's, like I said, it's just going to maximize the space. So it's going to try and move everything to the edges of your margins of your vinyl. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about in just a second. But for right now, I'm just going to drop this diamond in here because I am creating this as a stencil. So I want there to be enough room around my letters that I'm cutting out to have it used as a stencil so that it's not right up against the edge and me having trouble trying to paint without going over the edges of the stencil. Hopefully that makes sense. I think it'll make a little bit more sense in a minute when I show you what I'm talking about. So I just dropped a couple of those diamonds around where they'd be out of the way, but to help me create essentially margins around my design. So I'm going to click on matte, and here you can see that it's actually kind of centered it a little bit on my vinyl that I'm going to be doing. So now if I go back and I take those little diamonds away, I had also grouped them and I had clicked attach. So I undid both of those things. So getting rid of the diamonds to show you. So now this is not attached. I'm going to click on matte again and show you what happens when it's not attached. See, because it is just trying to maximize the vinyl. So I'm going to click attach. I'm going to add those. So when I click attach, see, but now it's all up against the margins and I'm not going to be able to use it as a stencil that way. So I went back and I added those little diamonds back in and was ready to go ahead and get it cut. So I am preparing my vinyl. I cut it down to the right size that I needed for this project because I'm using a scrap of 12 by 12 smart vinyl. So I am going to need it on the mat in order to do that. So just getting it all ready, I was double checking the dimensions to make sure my vinyl is the right size, because as you know, I am infamous for thinking I have the dimensions right and then messing them up. So I'm just double checking. I'm going to go ahead and get it loaded. It is measuring my vinyl. Another little double check that I've got the vinyl the right size. And then I can go ahead and tell it to cut. So it is going to cut my design out for me, and then I am going to be ready to weed it. I actually did trim it down a little bit more. I'm trying to remember. I think I actually trimmed it down after I weeded it. If that makes sense. But one thing I did not do was tell it to weld everything together. Highly recommend that, because if you tell it to weld, it will merge all of the little cuts into a single cut line, if that makes sense, rather than breaking it all up. It'll get rid of the cuts that are in the middle of the letters. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but it'll save you some time in the long run. So just a quick little tip. All right, so there I cut it down just to make sure that it was going to be easier to work with as the stencil that I wanted it to be. Obviously, my stencils are going to overlap a little bit, so I'm going to have to do it in pieces. So doing the America first, I got that onto my transfer vinyl. Just make sure you take your time, especially if you're working with the smart vinyl. The backing on smart vinyl, if you're not familiar with it, is thick as compared to what regular vinyl backing is. It's kind of like more of like a thin plastic, and it's stiff, right? And so trying to remove it sometimes can be a little bit of a challenge, and you just want to make sure that you're not pulling on the vinyl in such a way that it's going to damage or stretch your little vinyl pieces in the corners of where the cutouts are. Again, hopefully that's making sense, but I do sometimes trim it down like that just to make it easier, because if you let it rest back down on itself again, it will just stick again, and it just makes it hard. So take your time. This is, I'll remind you, sped up about 2.5 times regular speed. So I am taking my time more than it looks like. But it's fine. It works. It does its job. It just can take a little bit of working with it there to get the backing off sometimes. So I did use the transfer vinyl, clearly, that has the grid lines on it. And I did that purposely because I have the kind that's clear as well. But I liked the lines for this to help me get my words straight on my sign, essentially. So I used those to my advantage. I'm burnishing it really well, and then I'll peel back my transfer tape and I will be ready to prep this. Now, I am not going to go right in with paint. I am going to show you my matte Mod Podge in just a second. And I guess before I do that, I'm just going to go ahead and prep this other stencil, because why not? I've got the transfer tape ready to go, and I'll prep it for when I'm ready for it in a little bit. But what I was saying about the Mod Podge, if this were a painted sign, then I would totally come in with that background color and stencil with that background color first. But I'm going to use the Mod Podge because this is obviously, I'm leaving it as a wood tone. And what that does is, either way, whether it was painted and I was using the background color or coming in here with the Mod Podge, it is going to help alleviate any bleeding. It's going to seal in my stencil so that if there are any bleeds, it's going to be this clear Mod Podge. Or if it were a painted piece, it would be that same color, background color, that was bleeding, as opposed to the color that I'm going to be applying for the design. So just a neat little trick that will save you a lot of time and aggravation. So it's one more step, but it is well worth it. So I'm just making sure I've got it completely covered from every angle, and then I'm going to make sure it dries really well. I did not use heat on this because I was afraid that it might warp the vinyl, or create a bubble or something, or make it too sticky. I don't know. I didn't want to mess with it. So I just waited until it was nice and dry. And now I'm coming in with my Ocean chalk paint. I already forgot whether that was Waverly or Home Decor when I showed it to you. I think it's Waverly. Those are both plaid products, and so I can never remember which one I'm using, but I do know that the color is Ocean. And I'm just using a cosmetic sponge to stipple this on. I love using cosmetic sponges with stenciling because I can cut them down to whatever size I need or want, and it just makes the job really easy. So now I'm ready to peel this all back. I did not wait for it to dry. I don't know whether it would have been fine to let it dry, but I always get a little nervous when I'm working with vinyl because I've had instances where it's pulled up my paint, especially when, you know, I've got the Mod Podge under there too. I just was nervous about letting it dry fully. So I went ahead and peeled it up. I'm just being very careful not to deposit any of the blue paint onto the areas that I don't want it. So you can see me kind of wiping off my little, I don't even know what this tool is called, but I'm going to call it a pick. So the pick point, I keep wiping it off to make sure that I'm not getting any blue paint on that might risk being applied to the wood where I don't want it as I'm trying to pull up all of these little pieces. So again, just taking my time, going slow, and pulling them up. But look at how sharp the lines are. This turned out so well, and I cannot wait for you to see the finished piece because I think that this turned out absolutely gorgeous. I am so happy with it. I guess if I were to critique it at all, I might have actually made the America even a little bit bigger than what I have on here. But all in all, I love this piece and I hope that you will love it too. All right, so now I've got the vinyl off. I am giving it some help. I do want to make sure that it is completely dry before I start putting another stencil over it to do the beautiful part. So I'm going to take this opportunity to create the background for that star that's there. This is just a 6-inch piece of balsa wood that I got off of Amazon in a pack of 10 or 20. I forget how many of them. I talked about it in a haul. I think it was a haul video a little while back. But just cutting it down, these are really easy to cut. It's like 3 or 4 little cuts with my my knife, X-Acto knife. And I was able to just break it off and it was perfect. So I'm using my Adirondack White by Home Decor. This one I know is Home Decor. It's probably the only one I can remember. Using my heat gun on this to get it nice and dry. And then I am going to be applying it to the back. Actually, I'm going to let it dry a little bit longer before I actually apply it, but I am going to test it here. Now, you saw I left a couple of areas not painted. That is so that my glue will have better adhesion. I did end up using hot glue for it. You'll see in a little bit. If you want a maximum hold, you could totally use wood glue. E6000 would probably work as well. But now I've got my other stencil ready to set down, and I'm going to be careful. I'm going to be burnishing it really well around the letters themselves, but up in that top left area where it's overlapping the area that I've already painted, I'm going to be real careful not to burnish it where I don't absolutely have to, because I'm nervous about pulling up the paint. Right. And that was part of why I wanted to make sure that that paint was 100% dry. I left it a little bit longer, did that other piece for the star, so that it would have an opportunity to just cure a little bit longer. It turned out fine, spoiler alert. But I was just being uber careful with the way that I was treating it. So peeling my transfer tape away, and then I am going to be ready to come back in with the Mod Podge again. So same exact process. I covered it all completely with the Mod Podge, and then once that was dry, I was going to be ready to paint it, letting it sit and dry a little longer while I actually do apply my little background here. With that cutout, you could totally leave it, but wherever you hang it, that's what color the star is going to be. I wanted my star to be white, so I didn't want to be limited on what wall I could hang it on. So that is why I went ahead and put that backing on it. Totally up to you if you want to do that. I was just trying to get rid of a string of hot glue there. That's what I was doing. And of course, I deposited a little bit of blue paint in the process, so I'm just cleaning it up a little bit and giving it some more white. All right, now that this is completely dry, I came in with my crimson chalk paint. I think this is Waverly. Again, I cannot remember. I think it's Waverly, but it is crimson. So that is the shade that I'm using for this. And once I got that all covered, again, I did not wait for it to dry. I went ahead and peeled it right up. I do find that when I use vinyl like this, it does tend to tear around some of the letters as I peel it away. That one little piece is just the diamond shape that I had cut out before to use as creating margins for myself. So that's what that was. But I just slowly peeled this up and then weeded it all out. Again, look how sharp this looks. So happy with how this turned out. Gonna go ahead and peel away those little bits and pieces to get this fully weeded out. And then we'll be ready to go on to the next step. That made me nervous. When that little piece of vinyl with the red paint on it went flying, I was like, oh no. And here I just totally scratched the part that needed paint. So I was trying with my sponge to come back in and adjust it. Ultimately, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to hit the little bit that I needed to without getting paint where I didn't want it. So I grabbed that teeny little brush and used that to touch up the part where I had scraped it. I'm leaving it alone for a second, and then I'll go back and pick up that vinyl, and all was well. I did see one other little place that I wanted to touch up, so I did that, and then I am all done with the red. I think this is looking absolutely gorgeous, but leave me a comment and let me know what you think of it so far. All right, so now I've got those little holes on the left side to contend with. That's from the original sign design that had the hanger on it. Clearly we are not hanging this vertically, we are hanging horizontally. So I'm gonna be trimming off that left side. I'm just trying to figure out, making sure that it's gonna be even, and it looks like it's going to be absolutely perfect to have my design centered on the sign once I cut it off. So again, I'm going to use my X-Acto knife and I am just going to trim this down. Now this is not like the balsa wood. It took quite a bit of effort. I would say probably 100 times going over that. I actually did mess up at one point because I pulled my ruler away a little too soon. Eventually I did get out my self-healing mat to cut this through the rest of the way. So it took a little determination, but we got her done. And now I am just sanding it down. Look how good she looks. I love this. So now we just need a hanger. So we'll go ahead and get that done. Now this isn't thick enough for me to use my staple gun. So I am going to be using hot glue. Probably should have used wood glue for a longer hold, but I'm just going to have at it with the hot glue and see how that does for me for the time being. I'm going to be generous with it. You might have seen that I just knotted the ends there. I don't know if that's going to help or not. In my mind, it was going to give the glue something more to grasp onto. I'm just making sure that there's glue underneath it as well as over top of it, and I'm being very generous with it. And I'm going to wait until that is 100% cooled down so that I can start pulling on it, because the jute cord will stretch a little bit, and so when I'm hanging it, I don't want that to show up above my design. Now the sign is very light, so I don't anticipate it pulling down on it a lot, but it'll pull a little bit. So I'm going to stretch this across, apply my glue generously once again, and then I'm just going to hold it until it's completely dry. You saw me like waving at it, trying to help it dry. DIY number 2. All right, this is a little family sign from the Dollar Tree, and that star was a set of 2 little ornaments. I had used some stars like that in a project a couple of weeks ago, and we are going to make this, give this a patriotic flair, this little family sign. It's super cute. I'm going to be using red, white, and blue paint, and I'm trying to figure out the order here. I am going to alternate them, and I'm going to start out with my white paint. So I was just trying to identify which letters we're going to get the white. It's going to be the A and the I. And I'm starting with the white because, to be honest, it's going to be the easiest to cover up if I make a mistake. So I am not being super careful with the white as I apply this because I know I'm going to be able to go over it with the red and the blue. And this is going to give me an opportunity to just make sure that my lines, that there are no gaps in my colors, if that makes sense. So just making sure I'm hitting all of the edges on both of those letters. I did, because I'm having to kind of smoosh the paint through there, I did end up painting the back of the family sign because I'm just a little extra. And I like it to look nice and clean. Not that anybody's going to be looking down inside the sign, but you never know. So then I did the crimson on the F and the L. Got those nice and touched up. I'm just using small, relatively stiff brushes to make sure that I have a little bit more control over where I'm depositing the paint. It looks like I'm going super fast here. Again, I do have this video slowed down to, sped up to about 2.5 times the actual speed. So I was going 2.5 times slower than what it looks like. The ocean blue is being used for my M and my Y. These are the exact same paint colors, by the way, that I used on the first project. So I've got the crimson, the Adirondack white, and the ocean blue. And I'm not being super careful about the base because I'm going to be painting that base in Java. It's actually not quite Java. I'll explain that in a minute. But in the meantime, I got it nice and dry so that I could work with it. I'm going to be applying the star using that little loop on there to my advantage to hook it behind the eye. And I'm just making sure that it's bent properly so that it's straight on with the sign. It was kind of like leaning back a little bit at first, if that makes any sense. And I'm just trying to figure out the best way to apply it here. It is a 3-dimensional little star. It is not flat, so I'm not able to just lay it down on the surface like that because it just won't adhere properly if I try to do it that way. That's why I'm holding it the way I am. I did wait until it was cooled down enough for me to touch it, so please don't fear. I did not burn myself making this project. Again, this is sped up, so I'm just being very careful. So I did pull away some of that little glue that I had applied, so I'm applying some more just to secure it. But then, of course, I felt like it was oozing over the top of the eye. Again, I did not burn myself. I was trying to get it to cool, and also there was like a strand of hot glue that I was trying to remove there. That's what all of that flailing around was. But once I had that situated and made sure that it was nice and secure, I was good to go with painting the base of it. Again, I think this is so cute. I'm so happy with these projects today, you guys. But I've got my Java, or what I thought was my Java. Again, I'll explain in a second. And my masking tape. I'm just going to apply some masking tape along the bottom of the letters there so that I can paint that base. Now, what I kept saying about the Java, This was clearly the dregs of my jar. And when I started applying it, I realized that at some point, because I haven't used it in a while, so I didn't remember doing this, I must have added some water, but I also must have added some black paint to it. I don't remember what that project was that I had done, but it definitely was not the thickness nor the color that I anticipated. I was honestly okay with the color because I'd been debating whether I wanted to use brown or black. I did opt for the brown because I thought it would be a little softer look. And it was still softer than a full-on black would have been, but this is definitely darker than your regular Java by Home Decor. I can see it on there that it's Home Decor, this is instance. DIY number 3. All right, I have florals from the Hobby Lobby that I had gotten 90% off. It was at the end of the season. It was last year or the year before. I can't remember. I've had them in my stash for a while. They were originally $10.99, so I got them basically for $1.10 each. Highly recommend waiting until things go on sale. These are far superior in quality to anything I would ever be able to get at the Dollar Tree. So this was such a good get. Then those little other berry looking things, I don't remember where I got them from. I'm thinking it might have been Michael's, but I'm not sure. I think they probably were also on sale. The tag on them said $1.99. I guarantee I didn't pay $1.99 for them. But I am going to be putting these all together in the middle here. We're going to make a swag. This is going to be one time that I do not pull my picks apart the way that I normally do. I'm going to leave them whole, but I am trimming off the bottom of the picks here because they were just a little too long for what we're trying to do. So I'm going to gather them in the middle here. And this is such a quick and easy project, you guys. You can do this in like 5 or 10 minutes. No glue required. It takes just the 5 items. I've got the flowers. I've got my little picks. I'm going to use some wire here in a second that I'm going to show you. And then some ribbon. Is that even 5 items or is that 4? I think that's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 items. 4 items. So grabbing my floral wire, this was something that I picked up in a grab box from Michael's a while back. So I've had it for a while. I honestly am not sure what the cost of it would have been, but I clearly did not pay full price for it. I'm going to wrap this around and around and around from side to side, covering the stems here so that I can make sure that they're nice and secured. Once I have them done like that, I'm going to twist it off with the starting point there, make sure it's nice and secured, bend it in so that I don't have pokey things sticking out. And then I'm going to go ahead and I wanted to say flay them. What was the word for spreading them apart like that? I don't know. I just want to make sure that they are nice and full and lush and evenly distributed. And I'm trying to make them look the same on either side to the best of my ability. I like the symmetry of that. And now I'm taking my picks, gonna trim these down in a second as well because the stems were a little too long. And I'm just tucking them into the wire that I had already established in putting everything together. So I'm going to continue to do that with all 4 of these, tucking them in, doing the same on the other side and tucking them in. Now, you could totally use glue if you decided that you wanted to use hot glue to just secure these a little bit more. I opted not to. And the beauty in that is that if ever I decide that I want to use any of these pieces for another project someday, like if I don't need the swag anymore, if I've grown tired of it and I want to refresh it or whatever else, all I have to do is snip that floral wire and the whole thing will come undone and I can reuse any of these pieces and parts. All right, so now I've got my Kirkland ribbon. Y'all know I love the Kirkland ribbons, but I wanted to create a bow that had a bunch of loops and was kind of all rounded, and I knew that I couldn't do it the way that you normally would do for that type of a bow because this is only a one-sided ribbon. So I was kind of making it up as I went along and trying to get that same effect by doing what I'm doing at the moment. But ultimately, I wasn't thrilled with this bow. The bow, I think, is gorgeous in and of itself, but I wasn't thrilled with it for this project because I felt like it was just too large. To do the type of bow that I wanted and to have it come out the way that I had pictured in my head, I think I needed a ribbon that was a little less wide. So I will be saving this bow for another project, but I'll show you here. Like, if you like that, have at it. Do this type of a bow. Again, I think it's pretty. I think it's just too large for the project at hand. So I opted to do a second bow. I was thinking, maybe I just do something really simple. I liked the simplicity, but I decided I wanted to have 2 loops on either side, and I am going to have tails for this now. So if you don't like tails, you don't have to do the tails. I opted to do them. So cut that down. I'm going to make sure I have a nice long piece to create my tails with. Tie it off in the center. I just want to make sure that I'm capturing both ends of the ribbon so that they don't get lost in that, if it doesn't get caught up in the middle tie, then you lose one of your loops, right? So just making sure that that is nice and secure. I'm going to fluff out my bows. I spent a little time just trying to make sure that I had them all a consistent size. And so once I had that all done, I'm just going to mess with it a little bit longer. Oh, tied it tight. There we go. I did mess with it a little bit longer. And then once I had that done, I am going to cut off another piece of ribbon to get it tied around the middle. But here we go. I've got it the way I want it. Going to grab another piece of ribbon about the same length as that last one, and I'm going to use this to attach it. Now, this did 2 things. It attached it to 3 things really. It attached it to the swag. It's giving it 2 additional tails, which makes sense because we've got 2 loops going on either side, but it also kind of made the middle section of the bow a little bit prettier. So it's not quite as squished, if that makes sense. So now I'm going to go ahead and dovetail all of my ends, just folding the ribbon in half and cutting that off at an angle. I ended up trimming some of them down a little bit more than what I initially did, and then I kind of made them wavy. It is a wired ribbon, so it gives you the opportunity to do that. And now all I need is a hanger. So I am using some of my floral wire again. I cut off maybe a 3-inch length. I probably should have done it a little bit longer. It would have been easier to work with, but I tucked one end underneath the wires that were already being used to hold the piece together, and then brought it across to the other, twisted that off, and brought it across to the other side, tucked it under the wires on that end, and got that all twisted off, and that was gonna be it. So now we've got a hanger. I'm going to be able to flip it back over and fluff up my ribbons in just a second. But again, I love these pieces. I hope you love them too. Please do leave me a comment. Let me know which one was your favorite. And thanks so much for watching.
Okay, everybody, that's it for today. If you enjoyed the projects, please remember to give me a big thumbs up, leave me a comment, let me know which one was your favorite. And until the next time, be well, be kind, and make it a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Take good care. Bye.